Hi there, my name is Chris.
And my name is Jason.
And this is The Talking Dead, a podcast dedicated to the AMC TV series The Walking Dead. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Talking Dead. This is episode number 29 for November 1st, 2010. And do you know what that means?
I do know what that means.
It means that the show, at least the premiere, has now broadcast. Of course, it was on the air last night. If you were unaware of that, well, you're probably not listening to this podcast.
Probably
so
not, no.
Everybody out there, I assume, has seen it by now. It seems like a lot of people saw it ahead of time because there were alternate ways of seeing it. But you know what? We've watched it on TV. The world has now had the opportunity to see it, and we have lots and lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about.
It's very exciting. So should we just get right into a recap of what happened, or should we give a few general thoughts first?
I think we should do the recap and then give some general thoughts afterwards so that we have some context for these general thoughts.
Very good. All right then. So probably no news this week, but we'll talk about what happens or what's coming up next week.
Yep.
Although there is a lot of news out there. The reviews and stuff were just piling up on my desk before we started doing this.
Your secretary's bringing in all the news and putting them on in your inbox?
Yeah, she was.
The inbox is full now?
Yeah, my 3-year-old secretary. I get her to manage all my email for me.
That's a probably good plan.
Good idea.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get right into the episode. It's the first one. We open with a police car coming down the highway to a stop. Rick steps out, holding a gas can, and he starts walking through sort of a devastated kind of wrecked area, overturned cars. It looks like there was a camp there, and he's making his way down to a gas station looking for gas.
Mm-hmm. Good plan, actually.
Good plan. When he gets there, he finds a little zombie girl played by Addie Miller. He doesn't know she's a zombie right away, though.
Nor does he know her name.
No, I know, but I'm saying the actress is Addie Miller.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd see this scene right off the top.
No,
I knew it was coming, but I didn't think we'd see it right off the top. So anyways, he calls out to her, identifies himself as a police officer. She turns around and, well, darn it, she's a zombie. So he blows her away.
He really does. He feels bad about it, though. You can see it in his eyes.
You really could. You could see he was very, very disappointed when she turned around and she was, all mangled and gross and disgusting, bloody. So
right.
she starts coming at him. He pulls his gun and he pops her right through the forehead.
Yeah, she's. I did a count, and she's zombie number 6 that he encounters.
Oh, okay, good.
I assume it's number 6. I mean, it was out of order, but when he does meet her with all the other ones that he's met, that's by my count number 6.
Number 6, but the first child zombie.
First child zombie. Yeah.
So probably a little difficult for him to just shoot her in the face like that.
Right.
Were you surprised? I mean, we sort of knew this was going to happen, but were you surprised to see almost the first thing on screen, a child getting shot?
And quite violently as well. And it was graphic. Like she actually, you see the blood splatter on her head and she fell backwards, and it was pretty graphic. Graphic violence against children. I was a little surprised to see that level of violence in that scene.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was coming, but I didn't know we'd get to it so quickly, but they really don't ease you in.
No, they do not.
They just get right to it. So after that, we get the opening credits. Now let's talk about them for a second. Music was cool.
It was.
Composed by Bear McCreary, I assume.
Yep.
Now, how do you think these official opening credits compared to the fan-made comic-based ones from a few weeks ago?
This is what I was worried about. I mean, the credits were fast. Like, you barely had enough time to catch the names that they were displaying on the screen. They were very, very fast. It wasn't very long at all. And I think the fan-made credits, I loved it so much.
I agree. I think they were better.
I do think they were better.
Different style, obviously. Way different style. The official ones were just a lot of shots of empty streets.
Yeah.
Nobody there, just panning across.
Setting the tone of the show.
Very much giving you a feel for the desolation and the isolation of everything now that everybody's gone. And, the fan-made ones were just so creative. Such a great use of the comic. And I liked the song. And the way he put them together just worked so well.
The only problem is that those fan-made credits were pointing towards the graphic novel and not towards the show.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't do that. They didn't make any real reference to the graphic novels themselves. No animation, no graphics, that kind of stuff. So no, they couldn't. I don't think they could be used in the show at all, but I love them. And the ones that were actually in the show were good. I mean, they were good. It was nice and fast, which I like. The music I thought was okay, and the imagery was it did set the tone properly for me.
But almost a little too fast, though. I mean, I wanted to read the names a little bit quicker. I mean, I know them all, of course, right? But if you hadn't been following this show for a year already, you might not know the actors, and you might want to read those. And it was pretty quick.
I think Joe Public doesn't really read those anyway.
Like maybe,
just kind of throw out the names on the screen and away you go.
Yeah, maybe that's true. I don't know.
But then again, you have a show like Lost, just has that one quick Lost thing. But then they show credits for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, they do.
So
they do.
the number of people working on the show. So this, I think that they had to get they wanted them to be fast, but they wanted the names to be there as well. So I think it was a good compromise.
Yeah, it's almost too bad that those fan-made ones were so good because this, no matter what it is a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, I was worried about that.
But still okay. And you know what? They're only the credits. They're not the most important thing in the world.
Yeah.
So after the credits, we cut to pre-zombie apocalypse, and we have Rick and Shane sitting in their police car, having lunch, talking about the difference between men and women.
Yeah, pretty sexist, if you ask me.
Pretty sexist. Did that upset you?
Well, it was annoying. I mean, the actual graphic novel does have sexism in it. A lot of the women, until Michonne shows up, the only women in the show are paired off with men. Mm-hmm. Right? There's no strong women. This scene sets the tone of at least a sexist Shane.
I was going to say it really sets up Shane's character quite a bit. It really reveals a lot about him, I thought, because he did most of the talking at that beginning part.
He did. But then Rick says something about the difference between men and women. He's talking about the conversation he was having with his wife. The difference between men and women is that he would never say that in front of his kid, and he's referring to sometimes I don't think you care about us at all. And he says the difference between men and women is I would never say that in front of my kid. Why is that a difference between men and women?
Well, it's not really. It's the way he sees it, right? But it's the difference between him as a man and his wife as a woman.
Yeah, individual things, not men and women.
No, you're right. Anyway. You're right. It kind of was expanding it into a greater scope than it needed to be.
Yeah.
That bit.
Anyway, I think Shane is sexist, and that's fine, and it sets the tone for him. But I just don't think it should necessarily set the tone for the show.
The important thing to take out of that conversation, though, was that Rick and Lori's marriage was not going so well.
No, it was not. They're in trouble.
They seemed to be having some problems, and it was winding down, for lack of a better word, maybe.
Going through a rough patch. I don't know about winding down, but going through a rough patch.
Rough patch. All right. But that's a big setup point right there.
Yeah.
So the next thing that happens is they get a call on the police radio to a high-speed chase, and they turn on the siren and get out of there and go to intercept the criminals.
Right.
So they get there, they lay down the spikes across the road, back up, and then wait for stuff to happen.
Yeah.
What happens, of course, is what we've seen in many of the trailers. The bad guys come driving along, being chased by the cops. They flip over, and a gunfight ensues. The thing I noticed here is that even when the other police officers were joking around about being on a cop show, Rick was always professional.
He was, and that actual the quote he had was just make sure you have a round in the chamber and the safety off. I thought that out of context seemed a little out of place. Like in the trailer, I thought it was he's a little too cocky, it's a little too condescending.
Yeah.
But in the actual context, he is being condescending to a specific individual because obviously he's an ass.
He doesn't like him, which we'll get to more of later.
Yep.
And they're joking around in a serious situation, where people could get killed.
Yeah. So I think I was really glad to see that condescension in context was awesome. Out of context, it seemed a little kind of weird.
Yeah,
so
you're
I'm
right.
glad that I got to see that in context.
You're right. I think it worked okay. And you know what? One of the things we worried about here was the accents of these characters. Did you have any problem with their accents?
Not really. I didn't really hear the British accent come out, but I don't think it was a Southern accent. I think his accent was a little kind of generic and over the slidey around regional, but I didn't hear the British a
No,
lot.
I didn't hear the British come through either, which I was worried about. I thought I did the first time I saw those scenes weeks ago. But in the show, I don't know if they if they redid it and they did some
Well, they might have.
ADR on it. I don't know. But he sounded okay. It wasn't exactly Southern. You're right, but it kind of was.
Kind of.
Shane had a great Southern accent.
Shane was good.
Had a serious one.
Morgan was awesome.
Oh, Morgan, he's British too. in real
Yes,
life.
he is.
So he had no trouble, but we'll get to him in a minute.
Yep.
So essentially, as we all know, there's a shootout. The bad guys come out of their car. Rick gets shot, and we fade to white. Now, the only main difference here, if we want to talk to the comic a little bit, is that Rick is shot once, gets up again, says, "Don't tell my wife that happened. She'd worry," and then he gets shot again.
Yes, in the back.
In the back, exactly. So it's kind of worse to get shot in the back. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, bad.
You don't see it coming.
Well,
Anyway.
there's no real good place.
No, that's true. So when he started to get up again and say, "No, I'm fine, everything's okay," I was like, "Hey, that's interesting," but you know exactly what's about to happen.
Yeah.
At least I did.
I did too.
So,
I thought it was a little surprising that he got up from that. I'm like, that's not. Oh, okay, there's gonna be somebody else.
yeah, I mean, that's the kind of change that I don't really understand. I mean, I guess it adds a little bit of dramatic tension to it.
Well, it also sets the tone that this is going to be different than the comic.
It does.
Right?
It's the first major difference. No, it's not, because we saw them talking in the car before. So
Well, that's expansion. This
Yeah.
is difference.
Okay.
Right? So I think it was important to set that this is not going to be the graphic novel. This is going to be something else.
he gets shot twice,
He gets shot twice
not once.
by somebody in the clown car that always has one more person in it.
That's right. 3 guys got out of that car
That's right.
after it rolled over like 4 times.
Yeah, 14 times. It hit the door quite a bit.
And almost exploded.
Everybody's fine. I'm sure they were all wearing their seatbelts.
Oh yeah, bad guys always do that. Okay, so fade to white, and then we fade into the hospital. Now, what we've got here is a shot of what I'm going to call the coma cam.
Yeah, coma cam or some kind of drug cam. If he was on morphine, I'm sure your perception of things would be a little off.
Sure. So what we're seeing is Rick's perception, lying in the hospital bed, his view of Shane bringing him some flowers and talking to him about how everyone's real worried, they can't wait till he gets back to work, and I'm just going to leave these flowers on the bedside table here for you, for when you wake up again.
Yeah.
Next scene, Rick opens his eyes, wakes up, and thinks he's still talking to Shane.
Yes.
And asks if he's in the John. When he looks over, he notices the flowers are dead. So it had to have been weeks since those flowers were put there.
Yes.
Flowers they die quickly, but they don't dry out that fast. They were completely dry and falling off the stem.
They were. I don't know if it takes weeks, but it takes a while.
No, it takes a while because, if there wasn't much water in them, it might evaporate quickly. But if there was enough water, it could take
a long time.
a long time to get that dry. So he's been lying there a long time, completely out of it, doesn't know what's happened, doesn't know what's going on. He gets up, finds the hospital's abandoned. He kind of stumbles around a little bit, and he finds some matches, which are important.
Yep.
Because there's not a lot of light in there. He looks down the hall and sees this awesome mangled body.
Yes, he does. That was gruesome.
It was gruesome. Now, it doesn't matter, but I couldn't decide whether that was maybe a zombie or if that was someone who was dead and had been eaten.
I think it was a meal.
Was that
I
a
got
meal?
the impression that it was definitely a meal.
Okay. Gross note nonetheless.
Very, very gross.
But awesome too.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with that. He continues walking around and he gets to the dead open inside door.
Yep.
And he sees the fingers coming through.
Yep. He does the right thing here.
He does the right thing. He does not open that door.
Yeah. Good boy.
Unlike the comic where he does and it almost ended right there.
But then he does an immediate bad thing.
Which is?
He goes into the stairwell where it's completely dark.
True. He stumbles around and gets into a stairwell. Now, the thing I thought about here is that I think they showed a little bit of restraint here because it would have been so easy to put some zombies in that staircase. He's walking down with a lit match, can't see anything. We get shots of his feet coming down the stairs. I was thinking he's going to step on a hand or something like that, right? But he doesn't, and he makes it through without encountering any zombies.
I think it's important. I think that the fact that he didn't encounter any zombies and the reason he didn't open that door into the cafeteria is that until he meets Morgan, doesn't know what a walker is. He does not encounter anything that makes him think that the dead are living. Like, not a single one until Morgan tells him. Because that whole conversation, the beginning conversation with Morgan, jumping ahead here, but he doesn't know what the fuck a zombie is.
Yep.
Pardon my language.
Yeah, they don't say the F word on the show, man.
No,
you're allowed to swear the same way they do.
Okay.
But I just thought you're right. That's exactly why they did it. But it showed a bit of restraint. I was thinking any other show, they would have used that opportunity for a scare or for some danger.
Or a cat jumping out and screaming.
Well,
for crying out loud.
They could have had a cat jump out.
I might have thrown the remote at the TV if they'd done that. That's true.
Luckily they didn't, and it was good. So he gets outside, out into the loading dock or a parking lot. And it's just full of dead, wrapped up bodies.
Dump truck full of bodies.
Dump truck full of them. He stumbles around. He runs into some military vehicles, a lot more bodies, and he gets away from the hospital. So
okay, there's a point I want to make here.
Do it.
The fact that he was in a coma for weeks and didn't die. How did he get food and water? How did he get sustenance while he was in this coma and didn't die? Now, I was wondering that when he first woke up and the flowers were dead, just like if he'd been lying there for 3 weeks in a coma, he'd be dead.
Well, he had an IV in, so he still had liquids coming into his body.
Your body can soak up the IV in a matter of hours. It's not going to take weeks and stuff. He still would have dehydrated and died. And food, he would have died. But the fact that the hospital was there with all the bodies and the military vehicles were there with a bunch of peripheral gear means that this area was a holdout base, right? They were trying to defend this against the zombie hordes, which means they were probably taking care of him, even though he was in this hospital for weeks while the beginning of the outbreak was happening and while it came to a head. And only after they got completely overrun did they leave him alone. So he probably was only alone for 4 or 5 days.
At most.
And because he was quiet and because there was a green in front of his door, the zombies never found him. So most likely, even though he was in coma for a week and was mostly forgotten about, but somebody was still taking care of him until up to 4 or 5 days before he woke up.
No, you're right. And it would make sense to try and defend a hospital. I mean, you need medical facilities in this kind of situation. So you're right. They were probably defending it. People were dying, but they were stacking them neatly in the parking garage or the loading dock. So you're right. He was probably by himself only for maybe only a couple of days.
Yeah, that's
because you're right. IV runs out pretty fast, and then you get dehydrated and hungry pretty quickly.
Right. And nobody was going to take care of the flowers at that point. They're a little busy for that. So
the flowers were dead. But I think he was lying in that bed for about a month, about 4 weeks.
Probably
Morgan makes reference to a month later in the episode.
Right. Okay.
So what happens? Rick stumbles along. He gets away from the hospital. He's coming down a street and he sees a bicycle. Lying some distance away from the bicycle with its back to him is what looks like a rotten legless corpse.
Yes.
As he picks up the bicycle, it wakes up the rotten legless corpse, and she rolls over to say hi.
Hi. That's his first zombie encounter.
That is his first living
actual zombie-ish. Well, I mean, the fingers that came through the door, he could have been anything, right? But his first encounter of okay, something's not right here is, obviously something was not right from the beginning, but the first sense of the dead are living is his encounter with Bicycle Girl.
Bicycle Girl, played by Melissa Cowan, who we interviewed a month or so ago.
Yep.
She looked gruesomely
awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, it was a great job. Makeup, performance, the whole thing was great.
It was incredible and just horrifying.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that was going to be just the most horrific scene in the whole thing, and it almost was.
Almost was.
So he grabs the bike and he moves on. He gets home to his house. He goes in. Yep.
Just his first encounter with the zombie is he doesn't do anything. He doesn't kill her.
No, because he doesn't understand yet.
Yeah, he doesn't. So I just wanted to point that out. As we go through the zombies that he encounters, there's a definite progression here. The first one is he does nothing.
Bicycle Girl is number one, he does nothing.
Yeah.
But it's because he's afraid and he's figuring things out, and he doesn't even realize. I don't think he realizes she's even undead yet.
Yeah, it's pretty evident.
Evident to us, but I mean, in that situation, you might be like, "What the crap is going on?
True.
I just have to get away from here."
It's actually been proven that when people encounter completely foreign situations, their brain doesn't process it and they don't see it.
No, and the very next scene speaks to that because he gets to his house, he finds that Lori and Carl aren't there, and he has a little bit of a mini breakdown where he collapses on the floor and he questions if this is all real, and he wants himself to just wake up and get out of this.
That scene was excellent. I think he did a fantastic job in that scene.
He did
It was
really
powerful.
good.
It was very powerful.
Really good job. So he walks outside, sits down on the front steps, and he watches a man come walking down the street a little bit. While he's doing that, Dwayne sneaks up behind him, and just as he turns around, smacks him in the face with a shovel.
Right. So that's his second encounter with the zombie. And what he does, he waves. Hi.
He waves. Well, that's what I'm saying. He doesn't know what's going on. He's still trying to make contact. He's not thinking, "Oh my God, I'm in danger." He probably has an idea, but he's just thinking, "Oh, good, here comes somebody else. Maybe they can help me."
I'm trying to figure out if Dwayne was a lefty or a righty because he swung that shovel lefty, right? Like he went through the trouble of hitting him in the face with the shovel, like as if he was left-handed. But I meant to follow up on this by watching it again or watching the scene for it. But I think that he's a righty, which makes that kind of thing a little awkward. But I'm just nitpicking.
You know what though? You can swing a shovel any which way you want.
Yeah, but if I was going to swing a shovel and I meant it, I would swing right-handed.
It's true.
Anyway.
It's true. You're right. So then what happens? We have Rick sort of starting to pass out on the ground. Morgan runs over and they realize that Rick was alive because he was speaking, and the zombies don't speak.
Not really.
And they question him about what his bandage is for and whether he got bit or not. They're worried about him turning into a zombie, obviously.
Right.
So Rick passes out. In the meantime, Morgan and Dwayne take him inside, tie him to a bed, and change and clean up his wound. Then they spend a little bit of time talking about, again, the wound, making sure he hasn't gotten bit, chewed, scratched, or nibbled, anything like that. And Morgan eventually shows him his knife and says, "If you try anything, I'll kill you with this knife." And then he unties him and says, "Come on out of here when you can." So
I think Lenny James did a fantastic job as Morgan.
He was amazing.
He really did a good job. I'm sorry to see him go, right? And I hope he comes back in the second season. I hope they change things so he comes back in the second season.
Well, I'm wondering if he'll come back sooner than that, because I was thinking the same thing. Man, he's so great. I love him already, and he's just going to be gone. Rick's going to move on and he stays here, and we're not going to see him anymore. So I really do hope that they expand his character sooner than they would in the comic.
Yeah, he's in one episode.
Well,
as IMDb has him in one episode.
That's a bummer.
It really is.
So Rick spends a little bit of time talking with Morgan and Dwayne, and it's Morgan really who explains what's going on.
Yeah.
He tells Rick about the walkers. He sort of gives him a rough timeline of what's happened. You've been asleep for a month, and he says, "I know this sounds all crazy if this is the first you're hearing."
Yeah, no kidding.
And no kidding, exactly. While they're sitting there talking, having some food, a car alarm goes off outside. So they look out the window, and there are lots and lots of zombies, including Morgan's dead wife, who died there in that home while they were holed up.
In the bed that they tied Rick up in.
Was that the same bed?
Yeah, well, he said it in the other room.
Yeah.
So I think it was the same room that Rick was tied up in.
So Morgan and Dwayne kind of retreat into the house a little bit to, be with each other, and Rick continues looking out the window and eventually out the peephole in the door because she walks up to the door and starts fiddling with the knob. She's obviously got some residual memory of where she last was as a living person.
Yeah, I think that they set that up rather nicely.
Yeah, they said it was set up a couple times in the episode, I think, here and once or twice more as well. Morgan says that he should have put her down, but he didn't have it in him.
No
kidding. So the next morning, they walk out of the house, and Rick, first thing he does is smash a zombie in the head with a baseball bat multiple times.
Practice.
It's
just like, okay, there's a zombie out there. You need to deal with it just to get some idea of what you're dealing with. Here, put this on so you don't have any splatter in your face. So he puts on a face guard.
Yeah, so is Morgan's wife zombie number 3, and that one's zombie number 4?
No, this is zombie number 3. Like I'm saying encounter as in, that port of zombies I wasn't really counting. This is, personal interaction with a zombie.
So this is number 3, and he wastes them.
Yeah, he wasted.
By this time, he knows what's going on.
Well, he feels sick, too. Like, I just bashed a human in the head with a baseball bat. Good Lord.
Oh, it would be tough to do, even if they're undead, for me. So they go next door into Rick's house, and Rick figures out that because the drawers are empty, they took clothes, and they took photographs, too. So he figures that Lori and Carl are still alive somewhere. They weren't killed, they fled.
Yes.
Smart. Yeah, good logic.
Good investigation skills there, Rick.
He's a police officer. He needs that. Dwayne says that they must be in Atlanta because that's where the government said to go, and that's where the Center for Disease Control is.
Yes.
Which is interesting because I don't think that was ever mentioned in the comic book.
No.
They just said go to Atlanta because we can defend a city. We can't defend little towns all over the place. Interesting that they brought up the Center for Disease Control. I wonder if that will play a bigger part in this season.
It could.
I have a feeling it might. So they head to the police station to get some supplies like guns and cars and ammo and stuff like that. When they get there, they realize that the showers still work, so they have a really, really jubilant shower.
Yeah, they really enjoyed showering together.
They sure did. But hey, man, after a month, I would too.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Whatever. They load up on weapons. Rick, as they're leaving, gives Morgan a radio so that he can find him later.
Yes.
I'm hoping he uses that.
Yes, and I think when we talk about what's coming up next in the next episode and coming up in the season, there is a possible, Morgan and Dwayne are coming.
Good. I'm excited about that. The last thing that happens before they hit the road is that Leon Bassett comes back as a zombie up to the fence. Rick says, I never really liked him anyways, but I can't leave him like this.
He was the idiot at the beginning where he said, make sure you have a round in the chamber and the safety off.
He was, and he didn't have the safety off.
No, he didn't. He didn't have a round in the chamber either. So that's zombie number 4, and he has no real problems blowing his head off.
Not only is it zombie number 4, but it's somebody he knew previously too, which is a different situation.
It is.
He puts that gun right at his forehead and just puts him down.
The effects were awesome. Did you see the big gaping hole in the back of his head?
It was
blood spilling everywhere, hanging onto the fence.
I like how he didn't let go of the fence like we said last week. That was pretty cool. But the blood came out the back. It started to run down the front as he just sort of slowly fell to the ground. Rick turns around, gets in his car, and they leave.
Yeah.
Now the next sequence is probably my favorite in the whole episode.
Yeah, actually, it is pretty good.
They pull out of the police station. Rick goes one way. Morgan and Dwayne go the other way. And what we get over the next few minutes is cutting back and forth between Rick going to do something and Morgan going to do something back at the house.
This is the first use of music in the episode. There was no music up until this point. At this point between these two scenes that they were cutting back and forth from, there was a very kind of ominous, low, sad kind of music in the background. There was no music up until this point. I don't think there's any music after this point until the very end.
But this was Bear McCreary composed music, right?
Yes, yeah.
So what we're seeing is Morgan go back to the house and take the sniper rifle that Rick gave him at the police station, go up into the second floor.
It wasn't a sniper rifle. It was a hunting rifle.
Okay, it was a rifle with a scope.
It was, yeah.
It
doesn't mean for sniping. That's hunting.
Okay, sorry.
Sniper rifle is like a third longer, and
I'm not really a gun guy, so to me, that's a sniper rifle.
No, it's not. It's a hunting rifle.
Whatever. He sits up there and he starts picking off zombies. A couple of nice shots, which is cool. One really, really cool shot where you see from behind the zombie looking back at the house. Yep. And as the zombie's head explodes and he falls down, the camera zooms into the window, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, you see the silhouette of Morgan putting another round in the chamber.
And what I liked about it is it wasn't a perfect camera move. It reminded me of Firefly a little bit,
right,
and how they had those imperfect camera moves.
Those are great.
Yeah, as if the camera was like floating in space sometimes and not always shooting what it should be. In here, it was like a zombie was operating the camera, and he kind of like pressed the zoom button and it went halfway over here and then panned back to the window. So,
shamble cam.
The shamble cam, exactly. I thought that was really, really well done.
That was well done.
Ultimately, what happens is Morgan's up there and his wife comes stumbling around and he wants to shoot her, but he can't do it.
He can't do it. Still can't do it.
Still can't do it. He tries twice and he can't do it. To contrast that, we have Rick going back to Bicycle Girl to find her. In the day that he's been gone, I suppose, she has dragged herself partway through the park.
Yeah.
So he has to walk in to find her. He ultimately does.
He follows. She's leaving a trail of growth. Did you see that?
I did see the trail.
She's leaving a trail in the grass of various innards and stuff.
Yeah,
it's just slime. Let's say.
It looked like slime or something. Yeah,
Nasty.
it was gross. He follows that. He finds her. She's not much of a threat because she can barely move, can't stand. Can't do anything. He says, "I'm sorry this happened to you," and he shoots her through the eye.
Right in the eye. Zombie number 5.
Yeah. He takes her out, but yeah, it was a little crazy to shoot her right in the eyeball like that. It was a great scene. She splatters, goes down, and is no more. The whole contrast of these two scenes, though, I thought was amazing because it showed Rick doing what he had to do.
Yep.
I mean, not being afraid to go and kill somebody. Whereas Morgan, granted, it was a little bit more personal for him, but he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it. And a big theme in this show is doing what you have to do to survive, and doing things that you wouldn't do in other circumstances.
Yeah. So Rick is learning that he's got to do what he's got to do.
Yeah.
And he's got a conscience as well because he knows these people are dead and he doesn't want to leave them like this. So he seeks her out in order to put her down.
Yep. Well, that was the first one he encountered, right?
Yeah.
So he goes back. I'm sorry this had to happen to you. He says.
Yep.
So finally, he gets back in the car and he's on his way to Atlanta and he's broadcasting on the radio. There was an interesting thing I noticed about this scene is they moved the camera from shooting Rick directly to shooting his reflection in the rearview mirror. It was weird. It kind of reminded me of a sort of 80s horror style almost. Like,
really?
like kind of weird camera work, and you'd see him and then you'd see the reflection and maybe you'd see something in the back behind the car or in the back seat or something like that. It felt strange to me.
Well, I thought it was just to get his emotion. They have to shoot his eyes. In order to do that, they have to either go in the mirror or change the camera angle kind of thing. So rather than having a 2-shot kind of situation set up, they just did one single shot. They moved it into the mirror.
But most TV shows would do 2 shots. They'd cut it.
It was an interesting decision. I didn't feel it was kind of weird, but I thought it was different. That's for sure.
They did it twice. When he first starts broadcasting, in between we cut to the camp, our first view of the rest of the survivors in the Atlanta camp, and they hear him on the radio.
They do.
Run over, pick it up, and but they can't send a message back to him
for some reason.
For whatever reason. The signal or the connection is just not that good. But then they cut back to Rick and we do that camera move into the mirror again. So I noticed it because they did it twice, I think. So back at the camp, Shane and Lori start talking and ultimately have an argument about whether they should go out and put signs on the highway warning people to stay away from the city.
Right.
She offers to do it, but he says, nope, I can't let anything happen to anybody. I'm in charge. Seems like a bit of a dick leader.
He's a chicken shit.
Well, maybe he is.
He doesn't want to leave the camp. Like, we're camped out here. We're fine. I don't want to put anybody in danger. Let's just stay right here. I mean, that's important because it sets up the whole issues between Rick and Shane about vying for leadership of the whole thing. But he's setting him up just like, no, we're staying here. Everybody stays here. We all stay here. Everybody stays here.
Yeah, but he seems like a bit of a hard ass to me. I thought.
Oh yeah.
Not like a friendly leader, kind of a bit of an asshole leader.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Rick, do what I say and like that you do what I say.
Right. Do what I say. Shane and Lori end up in a tent, and he convinces her that it's a good idea that nobody leaves, and then they start making out.
They sure do.
So there we have it.
Awkward though.
It did feel a little awkward to me, but that's because it's supposed to. I think that's because we know Rick. We know that's his wife. She thinks he's dead, but he's coming, and we know he's going to get there. And then she's like doing it with this other dude.
Yeah. And it's at this point we don't know that that's Lori. Like, nobody said her name. Nobody said Carl's name. At this very point, we don't know who that is. That is Shane's girlfriend, as far as we're concerned. That doesn't know how to turn off a light switch.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the next shot is Rick in the car flipping down the visor, and there's a picture of Carl and Lori.
Oh, see, I didn't think of that.
Right after this kiss that we learned that this is Carl and Lori.
And you're supposed to go, Shane, you bastard.
Oh, son of a bitch. If you even noticed. The first time I didn't notice. I was thinking that we never found out through the whole episode whether or not that was Carl and Lori. But when he flips down that picture, it's telling the audience, yeah, that's my wife.
Yeah, seriously. No, that's awesome. I didn't really pick up on that because I already knew it, right?
Well, yeah.
Cool. So we cut back to Rick. He runs out of gas. He gets out of the car, walking with his gas tank that we saw at the beginning.
And his bag full of guns.
Important
to have a bag full of guns.
Absolutely.
We'll get to
we'll get to that. He walks up to a house to try to get some gas or find anybody, and he looks in the window and finds that the family has killed themselves by shotgun.
Okay, now here's a question I have. I didn't think of this through the whole, from the first time we saw this scene.
I have a question about it.
Who wrote the God Forgive Us on the wall with what blood?
I was wondering that my second time through. Why would you A, write it in blood, and B, why would you write it at all?
And who did it?
Yeah, I think maybe he must have obviously somehow done it with the gun.
You mean to blow his head off and it just
blew his head off and it made the pattern of blood.
Maybe he wrote it in cooking oil or something before, and then the blood just kind of stuck to the cooking oil and fell off everywhere else. Actually, to do that, you'd have to cover the entire wall in cooking oil and clean off the spots so that the parts that hit the cooking oil would just slide off. Let's go with that.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
just as plausible as two people killing themselves and the second person taking enough time going, yeah, he shot himself in the head there, but I'm gonna have to write a message on the wall with his blood.
Yeah,
that's not disturbing at all.
No, not at all. But it's effective.
Yeah,
in the scene, and that dude with half his head missing was effective.
That was pretty effective. Write it on a notepad with a pen for crying out loud.
Well, yeah.
If you want to be forgiven, and as if God can't hear you but can only read messages in English, you write it on a pad paper.
Agreed.
Okay. Anyway,
doesn't matter. It was effective in the scene and creeped me out. So Rick is affected by that. He kind of stumbles down the stairs, checks the car for keys, not for siphoning gas. I thought that was interesting. I would think
a hose.
Oh, it's a farm. There's got to be a hose there. I would have thought to siphon gas out.
I'd be siphoning gas from every car I found.
Well, that's true. You never know when you're going to run out.
Yeah.
Instead, he sees a horse.
Yes, he does.
Hops on the horse.
He lies to that horse. He walks up to that horse and says, I'm going to Atlanta. There's going to be food. There's going to be people and probably other horses. I'm going to make you a proposition. I'm going to take you there and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
He flat out lied to that horse.
Well, he didn't know yet. He wasn't sure. He thought maybe Atlanta would be okay.
I don't know. I think he knowingly lied to that horse.
Well, I don't think the horse minded because he got on and he rode off into the sunset.
Yes, he did.
Or at least into the devastated Atlanta skyline. That's the next thing we see. The poster shot of him riding into the city with the busy highway going the other way and nobody around. It was awesome. He gets in there. He's riding around. He's slowly going deeper into the city, and he sees a helicopter.
Yes, he does.
So
the reflection of a helicopter.
What the hell is going on with the helicopter?
I don't know. That's very interesting.
That's certainly not out of the comic. It's definitely new, and it sure indicates to me that there is some sort of authority still operating here.
Or somebody with a helicopter. I don't know about authority, but it could be a traffic copter for crying out loud.
Well,
somebody holed up on a rooftop somewhere that has a helipad and was a helicopter, and they figure they're going to go look around. I don't know. Who knows what it could be, but it could very well be just some dude with a helicopter.
Not a lot of people know how to fly helicopters.
Jack Bauer does.
Yeah, well, he's not in this.
No, he's not.
Not a lot of helicopters are difficult to pilot.
Very difficult.
Right?
They're crazy.
And so when there's almost no living people left, it's going to be hard to find someone who can fly a helicopter. Now, sure, if you're a pilot and you fly around a traffic helicopter or something.
Did you get a look at the helicopter?
Only the reflection. It was long. I think it looked military to me.
I don't know. I have to go back.
Yeah, we'll check that out again. But the point is, he sees a helicopter, which is really, really interesting. So I wonder if we're going to come back to that soon.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Are we going to find out what's the deal there, like in the next episode, or is that going to be beyond this season?
I think that's going to be the last episode. I think it's going to be the finale, because that's that KR-19 or KS-19, whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm. There's a helicopter in the comic, but far, far beyond the first few issues. They're already at the prison, right?
I don't remember.
Yeah, they do. They leave the prison, they go to Woodbury, or they go out to the Walmart or something like that to get supplies, and they have to follow. Then they see a helicopter and decide to follow it, and that leads to Woodbury. But anyways, so interesting that he sees a helicopter, but he doesn't have much time to think about it because at this point he's deep into the city and there's a few zombies around.
Yep.
He comes around a corner and there are thousands of zombies.
Hey, look, a horde.
Yeah, a horde. So he's out of there. He's getting away, but there's just too many of them, and ultimately he gets bucked off the horse and ends up underneath the tank.
I feel bad for the horse, like just the actual horse being mauled by extras. You know, they're grabbing him, and I know it's a stunt horse. I know it's trained for this kind of thing, but I still feel bad for the horse.
Once it was on the ground, it wasn't a real horse.
No, of course not. But horses are trained to fall down, right? So obviously the horse was trained to fall down. Probably fell down on sand because they didn't show it falling on pavement. But still, I don't know. I just feel bad for the horse.
Well, it was an acting horse. It's fine. He knew what he was getting into.
Well, they did put a disclaimer at the end of the show that no animals were harmed in the making of this zombie movie,
Except for that one horse.
Except for the one horse that the extras ate.
Yeah. So when Rick comes around the corner on the horse and he sees all those zombies, you know what it reminded me of? Stupidly?
What?
Han Solo running through the Death Star, comes around the corner, and there's a huge room of stormtroopers, and then he turns around and runs the other way.
Which they expanded when they remastered them. You remember that? They added a whole bunch of more stormtroopers.
There were like 4 or 5 originally, and then they put an entire squadron of them in the remastered Star Wars. But for some reason, that stupid scene
did pop into my mind. Now that you mentioned it, that did pop into my mind.
Anyways, Rick ends up under a tank trying to get away. He's lost his bag of guns, unfortunately.
Yes, he lost his bag.
He dropped them. Now something else interesting happens.
Mm-hmm.
He's shooting zombies, and just before he ends up climbing into the bottom hatch of the tank, the gun goes to his head, and he says, "Lori Carl, I'm sorry," as if he's about to shoot his head off.
Yeah, and then he sees the hatch, which is, I find it weird that it's the first time he saw the hatch.
But I wasn't clear on what was happening here. It seemed almost like we were seeing what he was thinking rather than what he was doing.
Why?
I don't know, because I don't see him doing that. Like I know he's in a situation where he might not be able to get out of, but still.
I was wondering, first of all, how he was going to get from under the tank to in the tank, because I don't know if they have those bottom hatches in the Abrams A1 tank, but they might. They very well could. And I find it weird that he saw the hatch only after he was already looking up, and he already put the gun to his head. He's like, "Oh yeah, hatch!" So it seemed to me like it was a magic hatch.
It seemed a little bit like a magic hatch. The whole scene felt off though to me. I don't know why. It was good. I'm glad he got in there, and then it got awesome after that. But yeah, it was just weird. Like I'm surprised that they if Rick actually did that, I'm surprised that they sort of made him go there.
Right.
He's supposed to be our really, really strong leader guy. He's not the type of guy who's going to kill himself, even with faced with that kind of unwinnable situation.
I think that any sane, reasonable person would. Because, I'm going to be turned into a zombie, or I'm going to be eaten alive, or both. I'm going to blow my own head off just to save myself the trouble of any of that crap.
To just not worry about it.
Yeah.
You know what? That would occur to me while I was watching it the second time. There's not a lot of room under that tank, and he was shooting zombies, and they're just lying there, right?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have to shoot that many around him before there was a buffer of dead zombies around him. And the other ones, I don't know if they'd be pulling them out to get in.
Probably not.
Right? He would be able to create a buffer zone of corpses.
That's assuming that he had a magic gun with more than 6 bullets.
Sure.
He only had his revolver with him because he left his bag of guns on the ground when the horse got flipped over.
That is true. Is that kind of revolver only hold 6 bullets?
Yeah.
Well, so that might not have worked.
He might have had a couple of extra rounds in his pockets. Like they have fast loaders that they can load. Still takes a couple of seconds to load. But I didn't count the shots, but I think maybe he only shot 5. And so he saved the last round for himself.
Yeah, maybe.
Which he went to do.